Hey everyone, this is Andrew from the Private Investigator Advice podcast. This is episode 64. This is going to be a quick one, something different, where I'm going to just do some answering of some questions. And so let's just get right into it.
This is a PI podcast.
Alrighty then. Hey everybody, how are you doing? This is Andrew. I decided to, I'm meerkatting today. Meerkat's the new thing. I think Periscope's the next new thing, or another thing I need to try, I guess. I'm kind of liking the meerkat thing right now. I've got a whopping 2 people watching. Well, one gentleman's been watching me since I started messing around on getting ready for this thing. And yeah, so today I'm going to answer some questions. Been getting questions over the past few months, and some of them I've gotten around to writing back and answering questions. Some of them I haven't, but because I want to do the people that have written to me, I want to do them right. You know, I want to make sure I answer the question. That's what I'm going to do, but I'm going to do it on the podcast, and I think it's a little more meaningful. I'm going to withhold some information, like maybe specific areas where they're from, just in case they don't want that, but anyways, but before we get into that, I just want to let you know what I've been doing. Working a lot. Again, 64 episodes of me probably saying the same thing. But that's okay. That's just part of life. And we got family time and a lot of things going on with the family. And I just did a trip to San Francisco with my wife. I went and I got invited to a movie premiere. I donated some money to a friend of mine who was making a movie, a full featured film. And it finally got finished, and he gave me an invitation. It was for this movie called Refuge. I'll post something on the Private Investigator Advice Facebook page about it if you guys are interested. You know, it's just this guy, and he got his friends together, and he got some pretty neat actors. And he says, hey, it's done. You want to come to this movie premiere? I asked the wife. She's like, yeah, let's go. So we spent a ton of money, and we headed out there and flew over to San Francisco. Spent the day over at Fisherman's Wharf and, you know, just doing some me and the wife time. Ate a Bubba Gumps and, you know, bought really expensive sunglasses. I don't know why. And then we made it to the Refuge movie premiere and spent a few hours there. And I got to see some old church friends and guys that I went to high school with 20 years ago. I'm coming up with my 20-year high school reunion, and I just got to see a couple guys earlier than that. And it was good. It was good. The most important thing was I got to see friends, and I got to spend some time with my wife, just me and her. You know, when you're in this job, I find myself in front of the computer a lot. It just always seems to be something to do. You're typing something, you're writing a report, or you're researching something, or you're making phone calls, or whatever. It pulls me away from my family, and especially when you work from home sometimes a lot. When you're on the road, you can kind of be like, okay, well, I'm at work, I'm on the road. But when you're at home, it's like there's this guiltiness thing. I got my kids coming in, and my wife like, hey, are you done? You know, like, what's going on? And so, anyways, that's what I've been doing. You guys know how I feel about family and stuff, and I always say do that first. You know, family first. So, anyways, all right. So, with that being said, I'm interested in doing some of these more quicker podcasts where I start answering some of these questions where they're not full-blown podcasts, but I get to a question, I answer it, I give you some of my advice, what I would do, or give you some perspective on whatever, you know, answering the question. And I've got some questions in the hopper, and I've just gotten some compliments too from readers, people who have been following for a while, and I'll probably talk about that another day. But for today, I got a message from Steve, and he's from Canada. And we get a lot of listeners and comments from Canada. In fact, a lot of times it's United States, it's Canada, I think Australia, and we get scattered from all over the country, all over the world rather. But a lot of those. That's and the UK. UK's big. Go UK. So anyway, Steve from Canada. I'm going to do my best to read what he wrote. He says, I'm listening to your podcast, and it helped me learn more about the PI career. I work as a police officer now for 6 years, But before that, I did some PI work for about 5 months, mostly for the insurance company, and mostly surveillance and report writing and some court testimony. That's pretty typical of the insurance investigation kind of career. He says, I have a dream to open up my own PI business and switch careers. Honestly, I don't know what I would be getting myself into, but I'd love to try. I don't know if I should go back as a PI or work for a bigger company or learn more about the job to get ready to go out on my own. I'm not sure where to locate my company, how I would get my first contract, equipment, and all the starting package, if you know what I mean. I would like to know if you have any advice for my situation. Thanks for your help and congrats on the podcast. Okay, so Steve, dude, first of all, thanks for emailing me. I'm sorry. He emailed me back on March 16th. I looked, I didn't even reply to him. And so this is my big reply to you, Steve, and I'm going to email you back and say, hey, check out podcast number 64 because I answer your question on there. Okay. So I want to go back to the first one where you're talking about, you're working as a police officer now and you're considering switching your career. Well, I'll be honest with you. Before I even started the podcast, I was thinking, I don't know. Unless you're just incredibly miserable at the job you're doing, I don't know that I would give up that job unless you were on your way out anyways, or, we're talking, a job typically that comes with great benefits, a constant decent salary. Usually they're not horrible, I guess, depending on where you work. I don't know what your salary is, and I don't know what your situation is exactly over there, or, maybe you're just getting tired of dealing with the cop stuff. But you're going to deal with crap in anything you do, especially if you're referring to or thinking about going back into the PI business. So the first thing is I really think about that. People, there's tons of people lining up to become police officers because they know the benefits, even though they know that there's a lot of crap involved with that job. They know there's great benefits and there's a retirement and there's usually great things on the back end, right? So think about that. Usually with a PI business or working for a PI company, you're going to be taking a huge pay cut, and right off the bat, most likely, probably from what you're making now, unless you just jump into your own business. And even then, if you listen to enough of my podcasts, there's no guarantee that you're going to make any decent money. So with that being said, I would just really need to contemplate that first before anything else. Is that really worth it? Are you just done with that job, or you're on your way out anyway? So it's either you become a PI or you become something else, but either way, you're not going to be a cop. If that's what it is, then we'll move on here. Okay. So, what are you getting yourself into? Well, I talk about a lot what you'd be getting yourself into, even in the earlier podcasts, podcast 1, 2, 3, I think like 1 through 10. More recently, I've talked about, some of the travel involved, being away from home, and even for some of the younger listeners, like when you come out of high school, is this something you should be jumping into out of high school? So I answer some of those questions. And let me look that up real quick here. In fact, if you just go to the Private Investigator Advice website, piadvice.net, answer some of those questions right off the bat. Okay. Let me go back to your question here. So I don't know. You said, I don't know if I should go back to work as a PI for a big company to learn more about the job before I get ready to go on my own. I think it would be important to, I personally believe, and this is not everybody's probably opinion, but I think it's easier to learn from somebody else. And when you when you work for somebody else, you get a lot of, I would hope, get enough work to where you're learning a lot through practice. Because if you just leave your job and you go start a business, the jobs you get will be far and few between, most likely, and it would be very difficult to learn on your own. There'd be a lot of stumbling blocks you're going to find yourself, dealing with. But if you have someone there to kind of coach you through it and teach you, and this is why we do this, and you're going to be more comfortable. You're going to feel more confident, and that's really, 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 really important. I guess when you're doing any job, but for me, I think PI, it's even more important. So we got that, right? Okay. So that's how I feel about that. I would recommend, yes, I would probably go and try to work for somebody first. If you're leaving the PI or leaving the police world, go work for somebody else if you can, hopefully a good company, big or small. It really doesn't matter as long as you got enough work to learn from, kind of like a full-time gig here. Okay. You said, okay, so I'm assuming if you said, I don't know where to locate my company. So if you're thinking about, okay, I'm going to start a business, where am I going to locate your company? In your house. That's your company. Okay. You're not opening up a storefront most likely. I would not recommend it. People do it, but out of let's say the 20 or 30 PIs that I know of in the area, I don't know great, but I know of them. Nobody has a storefront. I think I can only maybe count 2 or 3 out of all the PIs I know in Washington that have like a storefront kind of business building where you can knock on the door and walk in and, hey, I need a PI. It's not typical. Okay. And why? Because there's a lot of overhead. And so, you don't want to buy pay rent on a building where you're not making any money. So you start from your home and nobody cares. I mean, there's plenty of PI businesses all working out of their home offices. So that's where you would start. That's what I would recommend. How would you get your first contract? If you're referring to a contract with an insurance company, probably is not going to happen right away because all the big companies or medium-sized companies have all those contracts snagged up. So if you're just going to be trying to get those contracts, you're going to have to reach out to them and, just try to sell yourself. So, who are the insurance companies that are out there that support Canada? Who have the, what I mean? Like I know all the ones for the United States. You got, all the Liberty Mutual and Farmers and State Farm and all, I know all the ones around here. I can Google it and I'm fine. And then I could go and try to find out if they even do surveillance or do they have, who's the decision maker? Who's the claims manager? Where do they send their work to? That's what you want to find out. And you just want to keep digging through that company until you find out who's in charge of it. If there is anybody, and you want to solicit yourself. And hopefully you have a bit of a track record so they can find out who you are and they can trust you and they can send you work. Okay. And that's why I recommend go work for somebody so you get that experience. Okay. Where do you get your equipment from? I have a list. I actually have a post. If you just go to piadvice.net and you go to start here, I've got a list of posts. I don't know if my equipment one is on there, but if you go on the right side, it says, most popular posts, the equipment thing is on there. What should every investigator have, right? Well, for surveillance investigators, I have the list on there for the basics necessities. So, I mean, really, it shouldn't cost a whole lot of money. A video camera, I mean, that's a good place to start if that's the kind of work you're seeking in surveillance. Cameras, and I could go on through an entire list, but it'd be easier just to go to that blog post and which I'll do is I'll put in the show notes so it's easy access for you to check it out. And there's other things I'll be posting soon, hopefully, about some other things you might need and my opinions on those, like audio recorders and binoculars and whatnot. But I can't. I have to wait till I get to that to write that. So anyways, Steve, that's my advice for you. I hope that answers some of your questions. I feel like a broken record sometimes in regards to my advice, but my advice really hasn't changed too much over the years in regards to how I feel about things, what I think is the best way to start something. Most of the people that I know that have started a business, not all of them, but most of them, all have some sort of, they worked for a company, they've got experience, and they're very good at what they do before they even start their business. But again, there's all other people out there that are very successful that started with very little experience and are doing quite fine too. But I would say the odds are against the individuals without the experience because it's a little harder to sell yourself. Sometimes you don't come in with anything. So, Steve, that's it, man. You got basically almost the whole podcast episode all for you. I thank you for writing out to me and asking your question. If you have any more questions, Steve, feel free to email me again, and hopefully it won't take me a month or so to get back to you. But if it does, you'll probably get another podcast episode. So let's do that. All righty. With that being said, I'm going to wrap this up. I've got some things in my mind. For those listening that know that I'm still going to do some interviews in the future, that's still going to happen. I'm hopefully going to have a special interview first with someone close to me, and then I don't know. I guess it's like I like to do these podcasts. Like right now, it's 11:30 at night, and here I am. I felt like, I got this idea. Let's do this podcast real quick, and that's kind of how I roll with podcasts. It's when I have the time and everybody's asleep, and I'm not interrupted, and so yes, there's going to be other interviews I'm going to do, and I'm hopefully it turns out good. I don't know, and if it's not, I'm sure I'll hear about it. Like, those are crap. Don't do those anymore. But anyways, guys, thank you for listening, and I'm going to probably try to crank out another one real quick while I'm up and motivated. So thank you, guys. PIadvice.net. You got the Private Investigator Advice website, padvice.net, and you got the YouTube page with the reviews and the podcast episodes and all kinds of stuff. And it's going to keep going. It's going to keep adding. I want to keep adding to it. Also doing the Meerkat thing. So if you're wanting to see behind the scenes and you do the Twitter thing and you'll find out that I'm on. Go to Meerkat, and I'm a little behind the scenes. I talked before I started the podcast, kind of give them an insight of what I'm doing. And there's a couple people that have stuck through the whole entire thing. I can't believe it. You guys are amazing. So hello to the Meerkat people. Let's see here. I have Terry Mackin and Alex. Yep. Thank you guys for watching the Meerkat episode as well. And that's it. I'm going to put on the music and I'm going to call it.